Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is KDK Kildyke, and welcome back to the channel. So I'm prepping for a big review here, but I thought I would set aside some time to show you guys the top single board computers for the 2023 and 2024 year. I read an article a couple of days ago, and I was really disgusted with that list because there are a lot of good, popular new boards, companies coming out with single board computers that I thought should have been on that list. I think they did like a top 5 with the Raspberry Pi 5 being on that list, being number 1, Orange Pi 5, and then there were a couple of others you guys will be familiar with. But you didn't see things like this on there, like the Youyeetoo X1 single board computer, best SBC on the market right now for the best cost to performance ratio. And so I thought I would show you guys, since I finally have them all under one roof right now, what I consider to be the best single board computers of 2023 and 2024. Now, what you see in front of you, there is nothing here that's bad. They are all phenomenal. They're all great. And they won't be in any particular order. Definitely want to make sure that I say that. So over here, we have the Raspberry Pi 4. You guys can see it here. We have the Raspberry Pi 5, another Raspberry Pi 5. Both of these are 8 gigabyte models. I have another one that's outdoors right now. It's in water, soaking for another review. You guys will see that. Then we have the Youyeetoo this is the Youyeetoo R1 single board computer. This is a brand new industrial based board. It is based off of the 3588K single board computer chip, as well as the Orange Pi 5 running off of the 3588 chip. So if you have a, even though I don't have like the Rock Pi 5B, which is based off of the RK3588, then you can also include that into the same family because they use the same type of chipset. Now, both of these boards are a little different. They're going to have different OSs, different optimizations, and there's a couple of different perks that this one has, such as the ability to have a infrared reader. I think it's a tech field reader where you can scan a device or something of that nature. You can get that for any one of these boards, but that is definitely here on this list with the RK3588. That pretty much is right now the Rock Pi's leading brand. That is their go-to chip for that. And a lot of these single board computers here have made a lot of other single board computers in the market obsolete. So if you have something like a lower end RK chip, or maybe even one of those all-winter chips, most of those are pretty much obsolete by looking at this table here. Here we have the Youyeetoo, same company, awesome stuff over there. I love their stuff. Single board computer. They sent this one over for review. Actually, they sent both of these over for review. Love both of these. This is an x86 single board computer. This is by far the most comparable single board computer right now to a Raspberry Pi 5 and some of the other single board computers. This one starts out at $109, but around Christmas time they had it at $99. Phenomenal board, and they packed as many accessories and connections. You can install M.2. It also has that near plate, what is it, MPC, near field communicator device, just like this one that you can install. And I have never in my life seen a single board computer that has optimal mics on here. So you have a digital and an analog microphone built into this. So this would be the most comparable single board computer to a Raspberry Pi 5. It was $99, $109 right now for the 4 gigabyte base model. Excellent x86 single board computer. It's really quiet, and there's a whole lot you can do with it. It runs Windows, Ubuntu, Linux, Debian, you name it, you can do it. All right, then of course we have the other, already kind of mentioned this one. This is the Orange Pi 5 RK3588. This particular one is an 8 gigabyte RAM. Love it. I mean, if you guys are running Android for anything ARM-based, that's pretty much the best OS to run it with. Now, I know a lot of these single board computers like this one and then even the R1, they still need a lot of development, you know, in terms of ARM-based single board with it being a different chipset. But if you're running Android or just AI, any type of processing, these are nothing to joke around about. In fact, a lot of the new handheld units that I think Ambernick and a few other companies, they're using the same type of chipset, but awesome single board computer. So we'll get to that right now. Now, a lot of these boards, they all have pros and cons. I'm just kind of going through some of these right now. We're going to go through all of them, but we're just kind of focusing on what each single board computer has to offer and some of the specs. Then, of course, we have the one and only ZimaBoard. This is an x86 base processor. This one is primarily made for media. Now, you can run up to PlayStation 2 on this one. Obviously, it's not really meant for gaming, but it is made to be a server. In fact, this one will decimate most standalone NAS servers in your house, which will typically cost about $400 or $500. I don't remember the particular chipset on that one, but I've seen people say you can't do gaming on it. It can do some gaming. Again, I ran PlayStation 2, but it is not really made for that. This board retails for $200. Company sent that over for review, but it is an excellent media server. In fact, I was actually disappointed with a lot of reviews that I saw out there because they didn't go through the OS and go through all the system settings. And so when I went through them myself, I was really impressed with all of the things that you can add to it and do with it. Then we have the brand new Radxa X2L. This is the 8GB model. I bought this one a couple months ago. Great SBC. Now, it's not the most powerful SBC on the market. In fact, the chipset in here is using like a J14. I don't have that information in front of me right now, but the chipset in here is about a couple of years old, and it's one step lower than this one, but it runs Linux, it runs Debian, it runs Ubuntu as well. Great single board computer. Entry level price of $39.99 for this board. I know I have not done a lot of reviews on it as of yet, but you won't go wrong with this. If you just want to use a different computer to hook it up to your TV, to kind of surf the web, do some other things, install Windows 10, Windows 11, it runs great. The only thing that I will tell you guys that I've noticed about this board, unlike some of the other x86 bases like your Atomic Pies and whatnot, is that not Killer Instinct, but NFL Blitz has some weird slowdown to it. So I can't explain that yet, but that was really the only thing that I noticed about it. The only other thing too is, again, this one has an entry level price of $39.99 for the 2GB model. I believe the 8GB model, this version here with no eMMC, cost me about $69 plus shipping. And then of course you have to source your own module here. This one cost me $10. And then the fan, the heatsink and fan cost another $10. And then the battery cost another $2 or whatever. I got that off of eBay. You really need to have those accessories. The only downfall about this particular chip or board is that it does not have a case. It is just like this, so I always leave it in this box. That is the only thing, is that it does not have a box. Now, I think, or some type of case rather. So I think you could probably 3D print one, but if you're not good to that, that's pretty much what it doesn't have. Now, the cool thing is they have also partnered up with the Raspberry Pi Foundation by offering the RP2040 chip on here that optimizes all of your bandwidth for all of your connections. I mean, this thing has 2 HDMI ports. It has 4 USB. You have 2 USB 2.0s and then 2 USB 3.0s. USB-C connection. Phenomenal board. It also has an M.2 on the bottom there. Nothing to complain about. And we also have, last but not least, we have the brand new Radxa Palm Slim X2L Palm Shell. So this is brand new. Took it apart, wanted to see exactly what was in here. There are some minor differences. So just to show you guys really quickly, the difference, they're the exact same board. Now, I haven't tested it for performance as of yet because that is part of the process, just to make sure that they're the exact same thing, even though that's what it says on the box. This one, obviously, company sent this over to review. Comes with the Bluetooth module, Wi-Fi module here. You also get the M.2 screw, because even if you get the adapter, it doesn't come with a screw, so you have to source one for yourself. The fan looks a little nicer, so you can see that there versus that one there. I'm not even sure if I was supposed to pull that off. I tried it, but I don't think that's the same thing. They also include an additional thermal pad here on the heatsink. You can see that doesn't come included. And let's see what else. Came with the battery, so you don't have to source that yourself. And this particular model is the 32 gigabyte eMMC version, 8 gigabytes of RAM. And the company was nice enough to include this with, I think this is still confident, with a 256 gigabyte Kingston M.2 SSD, as well as this additional kind of back plate covering a little bit. So they include that as well. You can see that's not here on this one. I believe that is, so all of that there is kind of exposed. So this was really nice for them to send this over for review. Excellent board. Again, there's nothing wrong with any of these. This comes in this particular case. I know I have it open now. So this is a plastic holiday. I'm not sure what kind of material this is. So this is sick. I showed some other devs this. I did a private live stream earlier tonight. They absolutely loved it. No complaints whatsoever. So again, I saw an article, talking about the top SBCs that are on the market. Each one I have some pros and cons about. Right now, I know this one here is the Youyeetoo R1. It currently does not have a case. However, the company is working on that. The biggest factor here is, and this one here is $100, guys. I'm sorry, I missed the price on that. This one's $100. So the biggest issue that we've seen in the single board community, because I kind of went on my own crusade to figure out how does some of these things work. And a lot of times we don't know how any of these boards work until we get years into development, 6 months, a year, 2 years. And then somebody will say, oh yeah, well, it just needs more development. And in some cases, we could already be at the end of the line. And a lot of that development is left up to the community. The customer. You buy it, you fix it up yourself, and then you make the best out of that community. So why did I decide to go with some of these single board computers here? Well, we have all x86s. All these are your standard Windows-based type PCs that can run your Steam, your basic games, like for emulation and so forth. But, a lot of times when we look at some of these single board computers, like let's say Raspberry Pi 5 or Orange Pi 5, we're only looking at bench test results to determine what single board computer is the best on the market. So for example, this is the Raspberry Pi 5 and this is the Orange Pi 5. Both of these measure on Geekbench on a score at about 878, maybe 878, 860 or somewhere around there with both of these devices. When we run Linux Debian or Armbian Jammy, we still have hiccups with like your NFL blitzes, some of your PlayStation 2s. They can't be fully optimized no matter what you do. However, this board, which is an x86, it uses a low Intel Celeron processor, as well as this one. This one uses the I think it's the 5095. Again, I don't have that information in front of me. In fact, let me turn this around. Let's see, which chip is this one using? This one's using the N50105. This one measures about 400 something on Geekbench, and this one here measures about 373. And do you know both of these Intel-based chips in the same format, whether you're using Windows or Linux, will outperform the Raspberry Pi 5 and the Orange Pi 5. I get perfect emulation with PS2. Not on these babies. Maybe if I run Android, give or take, but definitely not on the Linux side of things. On this, I don't have to tweak anything. Even when I've had my maximum carnage image and I tweak all the settings, there's more optimizations out of any of these boards that I have to do for this one than I do on this one. So both of these, even they're cheaper and they register twice as less on Geekbench. They will outperform a Raspberry Pi 5 in terms of emulation for like PS2 and some of the other ones. These can run NFL blitzes and your Killer Instincts and everything. Those obscure ROMs that we always have problems with. Now, I'm not going to speak too much about AI and some of the other processes. I'm just trying to give you guys some of the ideas. So again, we have the Radxa X2L. We have the Palm Shell, which is pretty much the same chipset. We have the Youyeetoo X1 and the R1, and of course, Raspberry Pi 5. One of the things that some of the articles will also mention too is they will say, hey, well, you have the strength of the Raspberry Pi community or the ARM community. There is no community much larger than x86. So anything that you have that is your mini PC base, your Intel based chipsets or whatnot, if you guys are familiar with the technology, there's nothing that triumphs that. There's nothing that trumps that. You will have a bigger community like with your Windows-based programs, which run x86 and then of course some other things, compared to ARM. There's no counting it. And then fact two, even if you were to compare Linux, ARM, which would be this here and this here, I've ran Linux on both x86s, or actually all three x86s, and it outperformed it. But again, without any adjustments, x86 has much more development, much more potential, much more reliability because it's been around a lot. And I was looking up a few days ago that I found out Android actually invests more money than Windows. But the bottom line is, not to really go off on a tangent, but the bottom line is you can't judge most of these single board computers simply looking at some of the Geekbench scores, some of the bench tests out there. You have to have development, ample development on a lot of these boards to really make a sound decision on what they can truly do. Now, the x86 PC market, that's entirely different. You get a stronger chip. Obviously, you're going to get better performance. But x86 processes things differently than ARM. And I think people typically forget about those kinds of things. Everything here will pretty much work, like all of your programs, like your Windows, Word, not Adobe After Effects, but like your Adobe programs. ARM, you have to make sure that those companies or providers, that there's actual support for it. You guys will always hear it in the single board community is we need more support. We need more support. And a lot of times these boards are advertised before communities and devs actually get them and before communities and devs have actually committed to them. And, those are some of the things. Like sometimes you guys will see a review talking about, hey, this thing runs PlayStation 2 great, or it runs Dreamcast great, or it runs this video game great. Whoa, we can't wait for Batacera and RetroPie to come out, or Recalbox, or when they get it together, it'll be run great. And people typically forget that, we make a lot of this stuff work. And those individuals, obviously groups, organizations, whatever you want to call them, they don't have to buy these boards. They don't have to provide support. They don't have to. Sometimes sound may not work. Sometimes a particular emulator may not compile over. But again, these are all great single board computers. I've tested gaming in other bench tests on each one of them. You will not go wrong to get one of these type of boards. And so again, I know when these two boards came out, the Youyeetoo X1 here, and as well as the Radxa X2L, a lot of those chipsets with not x86, but a lot of the chipsets that are ROC chip enabled, they really became obsolete. And I really mean that because sometimes development teams, devs, they work on a board for like maybe 6 months, 2 to 3 years, right? So imagine doing all that and you still don't get the effects of something like this. And so that's what I mean is even if they were, or somebody was to do development on a lower end ROC chip or the 3560, 3588, you would be better off spending your development time on something that's going to give you the power. I mean, why would I want to develop on an RK3366, something that's lower end? Both single board computers probably cost the same. In fact, there's been a big drop on the Orange Pi 5s, the ROC Pi 5C and the A. You can get those now for like what, $69, $59 for some of those. So imagine spending that kind of money and then spending the same amount of development time on something that doesn't even have twice the amount of power, and you're still spending 8 months to 2 years trying to squeeze as much juice out of it as you possibly can. That doesn't make any sense. So again, wanted to show you guys all of these phenomenal boards here. They all have their own particular reasons. And again, my personal favorite out of all of these has been the Youyeetoo X1 single board computer. Now, in most cases, I know it's not on the higher end chipset out of the Intel based chips or Intel Celeron based chips, but you're getting the biggest bang for your buck. 109, you get the cost to performance value is instantly there. Like when I bought this, yeah, we know it's powerful for ARM and if you run Android, but you were paying $127. The Rock Pi 5B cost $169. I'm glad they came out with the Rock Pi 5C, which is like what, $69 now. It's a great price, but again, it was what, $169 for the Rock Pi 5B. This one was $127. You get this for what, $109.99, and then now we have the Raspberry Pi 5, which is up there, was $80. And then after you add on all the accessories, you're at about $127, which costs as much as a mini PC. And I got a mini PC over here to my left, which runs the N95 chip, and that is much more powerful than this. So, I mean, what are you getting for your money? These are all recommendable single board computers, depending upon what your needs are. We have a nice combination of ARM as well as x86. And I know I'm leaving out the minis, like the 02Ws and whatnot. We're not going to talk about any of those like that. But again, wanted to showcase here because we finally have the top single board computers all under one roof. Each one of these I personally worked on, developed on, and some of these I'm also still working on. But I wanted to give you guys my reasoning as to why I picked out this list. And that website that I looked at, I can't remember the name of them. I made a post on Twitter about it. I cannot believe they left off this. How did they have a review? They had the Orange Pi 5 on their Raspberry Pi 5. And that's fine. I can understand they didn't have the R1, but it's still the same chipset, RK3588. But how could you leave these two off? I don't know. We spec. There's plenty of other guys that they're not on social media too much. They don't make YouTube videos, but they do their homework, and they already have these boards. You notice there's only been like maybe 1 or 2 reviews on this. I haven't even posted my review. Actually, now you guys have seen this video. I got my video review up, but there haven't been too many reviews about stuff like this because people overlook some of the best technology, the best piece of equipment companies get left over, like this one right here. I mean, this company sells a number of different single board computers with different specs and whatnot, but this, in my opinion, is their premier product that I spec'd out for like several weeks before I even knew it existed. I mean, this thing is phenomenal. But we have this one here, the Palm Shell. This one's great. Just came in the mail. All of these are phenomenal boards. I ran RetroPie on most of these, as well as CoinOps, Launchbox, and Big Box, Cloud Gaming, all phenomenal, but all of these are reasonably priced. I know the ZimaBoard over there is the only one that is $200, but aside from the stack of this, in most cases, these boards here can outperform a Raspberry Pi 5. So I don't know how they have that one at the top of the list. I know that is a huge community, but there's nothing that trumps or is bigger than x86. Orange Pi 5 community, again, the RK3588. The community slowly growing, still needs some more optimizations and more development, but it is a great chipset. It is a great single board computer, to have if you want to watch Cody, do some other things, AI, some other development. It is a great chipset to have. But anyway, those are my thoughts on all of these single board computers. Make sure you guys check out the playlist. I have videos on all of them. Again, this is my top list of 23 to 2024. And if I had to rank them, there are some, that need to be in a particular order. Cost to performance value, I would go with this. And I'm making this answer, putting this out there from a consumer-based standpoint. I'm not talking to you devs out there who would look at this and say, "Oh, I could do anything with that." No, I'm not talking to you guys. I'm talking about your average consumer who doesn't want to have their hand held by a dev or a community or rely on a community to get something jump-started. The x86 base boards are their best option. And then, of course, followed by like a Raspberry Pi 5, which has a bigger community. Your first would be something on the lines of your mini PC, but it's not a mini PC. It's a single board computer because it has all the ports. I would go with these two or these three first, and then followed by some of the other boards. And then, of course, the ZimaBoard falls into its own class as a media server. So those are my reasonings for making the decisions. I know I talked to what's the guy's name? The Butcher. Shout out to the Butcher. I was on a live stream with him and his co-host, and I showed him this board, and they said, "Yeah, Keel, that looks intimidating." And it probably does, but it's a cool device. I mean, if you are familiar with computers and you want to get an x86 board or something that you're really familiar with in the form factor of a single board computer, you're looking at one of these. High-end gaming, if you want to use, let's say, an Android-based operating system, and then we also have RetroPie running on this as well, then this is also a phenomenal thing. Now, RetroPie does, Linux gaming runs much better on the Orange Pi 5 than it does the Raspberry Pi 5. I know that's not an answer a lot of people wanted to hear, but it does, because I took all of my settings and optimizations. There are just still certain games that wouldn't run on here, like Tekken 4. Tekken 4 doesn't run on this. Tekken 4 runs perfectly fine on this with no adjustments. And I've been making adjustments for months just on something like that. So, but again, guys, that's my spill. Wanted to kind of keep everything in perspective for you. Again, even though some companies sent this over to me for review, I don't care. These are my thoughts. These are my concerns. These are things that you guys should know. And anybody watching this video, people that I've not so much worked with, but spoken to in the community, cannot find a reasonable argument to disagree with any one of these. But again, the only thing that draws this one back, the Radxa X2L, this is the one that I paid for, whatever, doesn't have a case for it, but it's no biggie. That's the only thing, about it. But again, all of these are exceptional. So make sure you guys expect some big things from each one of these companies. Make sure you hit them up on Twitter, Instagram, whatever you want to do to follow, because they could definitely need your support. Let them know that you saw this video, what you thought about it. If you have some more questions, you could find me either on Patreon, some of my Facebook groups as well, Keel Dyke and Hobbies and whatnot, and you could kind of help grow the community and see the progress that is being made. So until next time, I will catch you guys later. Peace out. Have a good night. Bye-bye.